So this is going to be a movie review, another movie review. This one's called Bye Bye Birdie, 1963. I'm giving this 3 out of 5 stars. I got some chuckles out of this. I have to admit, it was funny at times. The music was kind of boring. They got the idea from 1957 when Elvis registered with the Selective Service. He was drafted into the Korean War right when he was building his mansion at Graceland. And so they got the idea for this movie. The main character, Conrad Birdie, is a play on Conway Twitty, who was Elvis' chief rival at the time. That he was drafted into the Korean War. It's also got Ann-Margret, who was in Viva Las Vegas 1 year later, a much better film than this, with Elvis actually in it. The real Elvis. This Elvis Conway Twitty guy is pretty funny. He's got his Elvis 70s costume on, which is kind of interesting. The costume that Elvis used to wear when he toured Las Vegas back in the 70s. He had the big belly and he was popping pills at that time. And it's kind of interesting because Dick Van Dyke is in this one too. He actually turns this little kid's rocket set into like a meth lab. And that was pretty crazy. I forget what they call it, but it starts with speed. So this movie is pretty nuts, if you know what I mean. It's rated G, but it's Ann-Margret shows a lot of scantily clad kind of stuff. And same thing with Vivian Leigh. Plus, you got the speedball that the tortoise eats, and they slip it in the Russian conductor's milk. Okay, so sort of goofy, funny kind of Dick Van Dyke humor. I guess he was in the original play, and then later this turned into a TV movie. I haven't seen the play, obviously. It was before my time, but I haven't seen the TV movie either, the remake. So this is the film version of the play, I guess, if there's such a thing. And a lot of dancing, a lot of singing. I really couldn't get into it. I thought it was kind of tedious and long. I think it's 112 minutes. Not too much in the way of bonus features on this DVD, just a trailer and a bunch of filmographies of the actors. A lot of big name actors in this one. It's got Ed Sullivan from the famous TV show who made the Beatles famous in the United States. And so I guess that's why they call it television the drug of the nation, because they had the Russian conductor messed up on speed, speeding up the show so that Conrad Birdie could be on get his 4 minutes on the Ed Sullivan show. So Ann-Margret plays the mature 25-year-old, 18-year-old, I guess. I don't know. She's still living with her parents. She looks like she's about 25, and she's got a younger brother with a rocket set that I mentioned. And she's chosen to kiss Conrad Birdie on the Ed Sullivan show. And so she's all excited. Her dad's not thrilled about it because he owns a fertilizer company, and he's worried that he's going to lose business. But Dick Van Dyke convinces him to go along with it, and he's trying to promote his fertilizer company on the Ed Sullivan show. The ending was ridiculous. I didn't like the ending at all. Anyways, I think The Girl Can't Help It is a way better musical than this. That's just my opinion. None of the. I'm sure if you're a musician, you probably enjoy this a lot more than I did. But anyways, so Dick Van Dyke is the songwriter for Conrad Twitty. He thinks he's going to go out of business when Conrad Twitty is drafted into the Army, just like Elvis was in 1957. And his secretary, fiancée, is Vivien Leigh. Dick Van Dyke is attached to his mother, played by Jean Stapleton, who was in Reds and some other movie that I can't remember. She plays Dick Van Dyke's mother. She's attached to Dick Van Dyke. She doesn't like Vivien Leigh because if Dick Van Dyke marries Vivien Leigh, then he's going to give up his mother. So she's part of the package deal, I guess. And Dick Van Dyke is freaking out that he's not going to be able to support his bride. She won't be a debutante bride, I guess. And so he's worried about that. So he convinces Vivien Leigh goes to Ed Sullivan, begs him for Conrad Birdie to be on the Ed Sullivan show. So Ed Sullivan agrees, but then he says, at the last minute, he says, Russian ballet is going to eat up all of Conrad Birdie's time. Meanwhile, Conrad Birdie is going around Ohio where Ann-Margret lives, making everybody faint, and the Elvis Conway Twitty character in his 70s Elvis suit. He likes to squirt his beer all over the place. He's a wild and crazy guy. He's hip with the teenage crowd. Like I said, this movie is nuts. Just watching him walk around is pretty funny. The way he pretends to twitch like Elvis and stuff. It's pretty crazy. But this movie is a lot better than I expected. I thought I was going to hate this movie just because it's a musical and doesn't have Elvis in it. But like I said, The Girl Can't Help It, Viva Las Vegas, those films are better than this. Makes me think of How to Make a Monster when they were criticizing the musical movies of this time period. I guess they were talking about this movie, which came 5 years later. Anyways, not a great flick. It's It's pretty boring at times, but it does have its moments. I'm not saying it's a bad film. I just couldn't get into it like I could with The Girl Can't Help It. Had some pretty decent Fats Domino, or Elvis, which had some decent Elvis music. I didn't think the music was all that great, but I'm not a musician, so don't quote me on that. But I wanted to correct a couple things in my first video today when I was talking about the Bushido blade. I said Franklin Pierce was one of the top 2 presidents of all times in the United States. I got him mixed up with John Tyler. I was thinking of John Tyler the whole time. You know, Tippecanoe and Tyler too. That guy. I don't know why I got Franklin Pierce mixed up with John Tyler. But I would say John Tyler and Grover Cleveland are the top 2 presidents of all time in the United States. And Franklin Pierce was actually a pretty bad president. He went to war with Mexico over California. I completely forgot about that. And I don't know why I got it mixed up with John Tyler. I guess I was having a mental block. Like the energy drink hadn't kicked in yet or something. But, and Laura Gemser, she's half Indonesian, half Dutch. I don't know how that could be. She has super dark skin. Even Indonesian people have kind of light skin sometimes. And if she's half Dutch, why does she have such dark skin? I don't get it. But it makes sense that her last name would be Gemster, though. Because that is not an Indonesian name. And I know she lived in Netherlands for a while. But, I did some research on her after I couldn't figure out what ethnicity she was. I thought she was Thai. And I thought about saying Indonesia, but I thought, no, their skin color is kind of light sometimes. But I guess that just goes to show you can't judge a book by its cover. I mean, skin color means nothing, and race is kind of unscientific. What you can talk about really is in general terms about ethnicity, and even the old lady upstairs there, her daughter is from Sweden. She married a Chinese guy, I think, and like a second generation Chinese guy or something, and their daughter looks kind of dark skinned to me, but he turned out light skinned, so I guess just the luck of the draw, or maybe she was adopted. Who knows? Maybe both kids were adopted. Laura Gemser and the landlady's granddaughter. Really can't say or know the details, the origins, the unanswered questions. But anyways, that's the end of my review for Bye Bye Birdie. I'm watching Tank Battalion, another lame AIP 1958 movie with the Joker from the 60s Batman show. So I guess I'll finish up that. I have some time to cook some more chicken if you want some. And maybe I can finish up Tank Battalion. Put 4 reviews up back-to-back Sundays. Got 4th of July weekend coming up. I'm going to have him for 4 days. We got nowhere to go because the governor keeps placing regulations restrictions and shelter in place. This idiotic spike news in the newspaper. The old lady upstairs still reads the San Francisco Chronicle. I'm surprised they're still in business, but the big headline was big spike in infections, especially among young people here in California. But even the governor admitted that there was a lot more testing going on. And I'm sure the hospitalizations, death are going down. But everybody looks at the infections because they think COVID equals dead bodies in the streets, mass graves everywhere. People are like terrified of COVID. And it just shows that like Karl Marx said, the propaganda always in the power of the rulers leads the masses to do anything they want, pretty much. And that's the situation here in California. I don't know if my best friend is coming. She hasn't said, but I suspect when your unemployment runs out, she'll have nothing better to do but go visit her parents. That'll be my opportunity to kind of state my case that she needs a man in her life, which I haven't been able to do for the last 13 years or so. But anyways, I'm going to cook some chicken. Not a great flick. Can't say highly recommended or check it out, but I did put the actors' names in the description box if you're interested. And like I said, much better films are The Girl Can't Help It and Viva Las Vegas. Laters.